when we look at career growth, we're looking at a whole number of dimensions. And what you'll notice on this slide is that, one of the things that people are most focused on, and young people in particular, is like their task performance. How are they doing on their technical work, right? And we look at it much more holistically. We think that the real differentiators, the real way that people grow in their careers more quickly and really add more value and get even more career satisfaction and engagement, is when they're making progress on these other dimensions. So it's not just in their heads down day-to-day work, but it's how are they integrating with the culture? How are they building their relationships, both with their peers, with supervisors, externally? How good are they at soliciting feedback? How good are they at identifying skill gaps? So those kinds of things. How are they proactively going at growing and developing themselves and partnering with L&D functions to do that? And then ultimately, a lot of times we see young people are thinking, I've been in this role for a year, I've been doing a good job, I'm sure I'm going to be promoted. And they have a sort of an expectation set that has been built based on how we were trained in school, and the sort of just social promotion, you move along, you move up. And they don't really know that they need to manage that they need to oftentimes be acting in a more senior role before they will get that promotion, that the promotion isn't always for the job well done. It's actually for the potential that they could add in a future, more expansive role. And so we're doing a lot of work, and we believe companies in general, whether you work with us or whether you're doing it as part of how you coach and develop your young talent, need to be helping people understand this holistic view on career management and career growth. And so that's a big point of view that we bring. That's what we'd like to see people emphasizing in the way that they develop young people. So with that in mind, how do we do that? So we have 3 pillars we want to kind of share with you today that could be applied in your organizations. First, we really want to affect a mindset shift. So we really believe we all, through our schooling, come into the world of work thinking that the world works in a certain way. And that way is that somebody else tells you what needs to be done. They tell you how it needs to be done. They give you regular feedback on whether you're doing it well. And we think the world of work is much more complex than that. It isn't that structured. It's much messier. And so we need to really essentially recontract and help readjust the mindset that people have so that they can take more ownership, more agency, and be more effective in their roles, play more offense rather than be in a defensive situation. So that's the first thing that we're constantly working on. And this is not just young professionals. We see this all the way into mid-career. How do we get people to realize they need to do that? So that's the first one. The second one is that we believe everybody comes in at a different point with different struggles. So we can't, or different obstacles, different challenges, different opportunities. We can't treat them all the same. So we believe whether it's really training your managers to be very good coaches, or having a robust mentoring program, or what we believe is most effective is having outside coaching that's neutral, that's trained, that really has a variety of perspectives that they're bringing to the engagement and the development of a young person. We believe that that's essential. We see that people have different blocks, whether that's knowing how to advance their ideas inside of an organization, or being confident in meetings, or identifying skill gaps, whatever it is. We can't assume that every young professional is the same and that they need the same thing in the same moment. And so we really believe that any really highly effective program needs to offer that personalized support and meet the employee exactly where they are, and then build the strengths from there. So that's core to our philosophy. And obviously, there's some new data coming out from Gartner suggesting that training itself with coaching is 50% more effective than without. So that's one of our philosophies that we really build around. And the final area is that, as I said on the last slide, the soft skills are so critical. And if these things are not something that get developed in a 1 or 2 hour training, they need reinforcement, they need safe places to practice. So we think that that's another critical element of any programming, is that you have that ability to not only learn about soft skills like managing up and communication best practices, but you actually have a safe place to explore the edges of that and build that muscle, try something out in the actual world of work, bring feedback to your coach, your mentor, whatever it is, and then begin to adjust. There's data that suggests the skills today that are most missing are actually take 40, 50, 60 days to build. These are not skills that you send people off and in 1 or 2 hours they've figured it out and mastered it. So we just think there needs to be a combination there. And so as we recommend to companies that are thinking about building programming, we really think these 3 elements: 1, focusing on the mindset shift; 2, the personalized support; and then 3, the reinforcement around the soft skills. So that's our frame. Before we hand it over to Suzanne for some another angle on this, love to get anybody's reactions, questions, feedback on what you're doing or what you've seen. It'd be wonderful.
Mike, I love the combination of methodology, training, and coaching. I think without the coaching, you're right. You don't get there, especially on the soft skills.
Thanks, John. Anybody else?
I think the mindset shift is a really big thing, because I know I've raised my kids. Everyone gets a trophy. That's how they've been raised. So I think really helping them to understand that you actually have to work to get the trophy, and you got to work hard. So I think the mindset shift is a huge part of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, for sure. It's a disservice in a lot of ways, right? Because it's not realistic about how the world works. And our view is that because of those mixed expectations, it can lead to premature turnover, right? People leave thinking, oh, well, it's just because this company stinks. I'm sure the next company will be better at this. And so that's frustrating to the employer. So, all right, great. Well, now we're going to turn it, having looked at it from this perspective of employee development. Now I'm going to ask Suzanne to kind of share some of the best practices that we see in terms of the cultures that companies are creating to create a place for young talent to thrive and grow.
Thank you, Mike. One of the things that I think we see is the shift from the very structured, very student-centric to a non-employee-centric culture. So it's been all about them, right? And a lot of reinforcement, a lot of hand-holding, a lot of very structured, not very ambiguous environments. So the more structure and support we can provide, the better. And a lot of times, imagine, where everything's pretty clear and they're structured and they're guidelines, and if you make a mistake, you still get a trophy, etc. And now you're thrown into this company-centric, customer-centric role. It really does a number on their confidence. And Simon Sinek talks a lot about this. So all of a sudden, I'm thrown in the pond. I'm supposed to swim. Where's my life raft? Where's my coach? Right? Where's the diving board that I practiced 60 times on how to jump off that diving board? That doesn't exist. So we're looking at more support. And now we're finding that they want support. And I think many of us have been managers where we've had employees that have come to us and said, what do I do about this? And it's not, as coaches, we're talking to people about their personal lives too. So they need a lot of onboarding, a lot of more structure, those learning and development to review and resource. And then, of course, we find that they've been texting mostly or communicating in the digital world, and they may not have the courage or the knowledge of how to support their managers. And I'd love to see if anybody can speak to this. If you've seen that with either your own folks at home or with your employees, this need for, again, more of an employee-focused culture. Anybody have an experience with any of these on the screen that I've been talking about?
We do market research, which we publish, and Mike, I shared with you recently. This generation looks totally different than prior generations on some really important components. You already touched on it with some of the Gallup data, but they are different. They are really, clamoring for more inclusive environments, more safety, interestingly. And a lot of that is around psychological safety. We're talking, what's the term that they have in college now? Safe zones and, trigger speech, it's a different world, and they are very definitely motivated by justice and higher purpose. It's different. I suspect over time they'll conform to the norm, become more like, older generations, but right now it is very different.
Thank you so much. That was a very good insight, John. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. I'm hearing a lot about them speaking about a sense of belonging. So I think it goes to that experience. They want, when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to your point of just being thrown into the pond, they're looking for community, even though they're working remotely. And how do you do that, especially as we're moving to work from home? And making it an experience. It's more about creating an experience, a positive experience for all generations, honestly, and meeting them where they are.
Excellent point, Lynn. And we're also seeing, because of COVID and so much remote, a lot of times you just spontaneous on a Thursday say, hey, let's go out for something to eat. We don't have those. So inclusion and opportunities and programs to help them join together in a more social format. We have a new cohort, and we hadn't instituted this, but they want a social hour too. So finding ways, you can't go down to the juice bar anymore, right? Finding ways to create those programs of contact and community for them are even more important. And where do I fit in? How am I being looked at and evaluated and also accepted in my culture? Great point. Thank you, Lynn. Anybody else?
Yeah. Suzanne, could you say a little bit more about what you think needs to be included in comprehensive onboarding? What are the elements there?
That's a great question. Thank you. Understanding the culture, right? The do's and don'ts. What do we do? What are the expectations? And that mission and focus. And I've coached a lot of emerging professionals. One of them went to a large company that had a very wonderful social mission, but she was in the wrong job. And I said, what happened to that, social working HR part of yourself? She goes, well, the company's going to take care of that. Not necessarily, but that is an attraction. So making sure that they're clear about their job expectations, they are given an opportunity to learn soft skills. Right? This is what we do. This is how we talk to customers. These are the expectations, as well as setting the parameters for even when do we work from home. We've also found, very importantly, and this should be cascaded through all communications, is the why. They like to be told why. And those of you who have kids, right? Why can't I eat all that candy? Because you'll get a stomachache. But helping them understand and the expectations of why they're being asked to do. What's important about documentation? Why do we need this? Why do we need that? That is huge, as well as how are they going to be recognized? And and I know this is way ahead of the piece, but how do people move through progressive individual development plans in the company? And who's going to be my mentor? Those are some of the ones we find are most important to this population, to both Gen Y and Gen Z. Gen Z is asking more for that social mission and that ability for corporations to step in and speak out against social justice. Is there anything else I can add, Joan? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So Joan, I did a onboarding we did a whole onboarding creation for a community center who had a bunch of different sites. And people were coming in to work at different departments, and they were only knowing about that department that they were working for. So, we include in the onboarding tours of each of the different sites and introductions to all the senior managers and being able to sit down with everyone from all the different departments. That helps to make them feel included and to understand what everyone's roles are in the company. So that comprehensive onboarding really is about the people, in all of our opinion, is about the people aspect of it and understanding who the leaders are of the different departments and what the roles are and how their role affects the others. So
just a quick question, if I may, just to make sure that I'm understanding too. So you're primarily working with the employees, correct, through this program? And I guess, the question comes about the organizations, right? Everybody, we're all the companies are looking for these ideal employees that take initiative, that, are really going gangbusters and just when you brought up the example of onboarding, right? How are you helping organizations to also meet the employees where they're at? Because we worked with one organization and their onboarding was just what you mentioned, Sandy, go around and meet with the different departments and everything. What we found, though, was that each individual had a different story about the organization, and some of the stories were not the best. So as a new employee coming in and somebody's telling you that you need a CYA file, that kind of sets a red flag if they're hearing that. So I guess, how are you addressing the employer and the employee with regards to expectations and perception?
Mike, do you want to take that? Or do you want me to take that?
Sure. I mean, so from our point of view, it's a both and, right?
Mhm.
We're doing a lot of the younger professional work, but then we're partnering with organizations like Sandy's that are doing the manager level and above work, because we see it as both sides, right? If we train young people to be more empowered and take more agency, and then we run them into a buzzsaw of a corporation that's not receiving that, well, first of all, they probably wouldn't have hired us to do that work. But assuming they did, and we have had people say to us, hey, can you work with this population and develop them, because we're not going to change the senior people around here. And we're kind of like, yeah, no, we can't really do that. Like, we're not going to do that, because that's not going to be effective. So it has to work top and bottom. But I do think from our point of view, if we can develop the right habits at the younger and individual contributor level earlier, then they're better on a pathway towards being more effective managers, rather than what we see in a lot of companies is people become managers because of battlefield promotions. They've been there. There's no real rhyme or reason, and they haven't really developed some of the right habits to become good leader material. So I think we need to partner, and we do, with people that are working in the middle level training and above.
Yeah, it's having that leadership team that's saying, we need a consistent onboarding, a consistent messaging from everybody. This is what we're, coming up with that. The language and all of that is really important. So, we all know that people don't leave the companies, they leave their managers. So it's really in tandem, that we're able to work together like this, which is pretty incredible.
And we're also training them to manage up. Right? If the manager isn't giving them clear expectations, to ask about those. And again, our coaches are helping them have those deeper conversations and making sure, again, things are clear. If there's a handoff, to ask for more specificity if they're not getting what they need. So in that way, we're sort of coaching the manager through the employee to be better at giving clear directions. And even asking at times for feedback, right? The manager may not be giving that. And that's a hard thing to do at a young age. I don't know about you, but I wasn't really wanting to ask my manager how I was doing unless it was a pat on the head. But we're teaching them how to have those conversations that are so essential if their manager isn't.
Michelle, I see you have your hand up.
So a couple thoughts, I'll try to piece them together. So I had a conversation this week with a manager who is trying to help work their way out of remote working opportunities. So he still holds the belief that everybody should sit at their desk for X number of hours a week, whether they have work to do or not, and isn't buying into the remote working relationship or the flexibility and holding people accountable for achieving objectives. So he's not there. When I look at the youth that are coming up, that's exactly where they're at, right? We've tried this remote thing. We've proved we could do it. You fought us for all those years, you old curmudgeons. And we've now proven we can do it. So we want that. We're willing to walk away from experiences that don't allow that. So my two questions are, one, are you also training managers to deal with the next generation, or is this really about helping the young people advocate for themselves as they work through their career progressions? That's the first question. And the second question that I haven't really been able to wrap my head completely around is, since we've now created a year and a half of employees who are expecting to work remotely, have expectations of collaboration changed and how that will happen and work? And how do we deal with that from a employment standpoint? You know, I know you talked about, so you can't go to the juice bar anymore, but so are they still expecting that at the same level they were? And is there something that takes its place?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that we are seeing, and we know that this idea of the turnover tsunami coming, and a big part of that is because people are feeling much less connected to their employer, right? Because they do feel that, like, the juice bar used to be a really valuable way, right? There was perks, there were things that happened in the offices, the office, that made you feel more connected, that just don't exist anymore. And that's a huge issue for employers. And I think it'll become a huge, really brought to the fore in the second half of this year as we see that, because people are going to feel like, wow, I felt like a free agent before, and now I really feel like a free agent. And especially if they have the kind of skills. So from our point of view, it's going to be investing in a lot of the things that they really care about, that we're talking about here, the development opportunities, the growth opportunities, the new work experiences. And so we think it's not just our program that's going to solve that. They're going to have to do a lot of things from the company perspective to create that fertile environment, to retain them in environments where, you know, they are staying remote or largely hybrid.
And Michelle, we've coined the phrase the messy middle, because we're rolling into the messy middle, right? We were all remote doing that. Some people want to go back, you know, into the workforce. So we're in the middle of, like, what are we supposed to be doing? And that's the key question. And one of the things that, you know, we work with our executives on is, yeah, you got your plexiglass up, you got your arrows, your lunchroom is dismantled. The culture that you had before is no longer there. That open door policy is now closed doors. Are people vaccinated? They're not vaccinated. Mask, no mask. So, you know, we've been talking a lot about the use of technology. Open up a Teams, open up a Slack channel, open up something, you know, a coffee hour from 10 minutes from 9 to 10 for people just to socialize. You know, we're having lunch, you know, at this time, so pop in when you can. So we're really talking to our executives about, you need to change your mindset a little bit. And if you're not willing to change, you're going to lose really good talent, because there's jobs out there, the companies that are going to take care of their people. I did a radio show yesterday talking about just that issue, and those employers that are steadfast are going to find themselves, you know, in the losing part of this employment. Joan?
Yeah, statistics are showing, I'm sorry, Sandy, did I cut you off?
No, Joan had something to say.
I was just going to follow up on what Michelle said. So am I understanding correctly that NimblyWise is doing the coaching program and the training program for the new hires, the newer generation, but there is also a partner working with the managers? Is that always true or not always true?
Almost always true. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the times the companies, they have a gap with the younger professionals. They have never brought coaching to the younger professionals. They've never done that at the individual contributor level. And they're finding that their programming to build coaching skills around the manager level has mixed results. So we're trying to help create more skills at the younger levels so they can meet their managers, as Suzanne described.
Even if those managers are not taking particularly well to the idea of coaching? Is that what you mean?
If they're not taking particularly well to developing coaching skills themselves as a manager, right? So there's a lot of training that's happening for managers to build them and turn them into coaches.
Yeah.
And I think that the results of that are very mixed.
Okay, thank you.
And in the more positive trends, these generations are really asking for employers to make changes. And as Sandy said, we're seeing more and more. We used to have 10% requests for work from home when people are looking and they're evaluating Indeed and what employers are asking. Now it's up more towards 40%. So I think that they're, again, shaping the workforce, and some of the folks that have been around for 30 years that are managing the companies are not going to be able to keep and retain this talent. They're already having problems, right? So I'm hoping that there'll be a forcing function there to allow more of this hybrid work instead of saying, nope, everybody back in the office. You know, FaceTime, we as HR professionals know FaceTime is outdated. They've got statistics. But again, they're still sort of sticking to some of these norms that they've had for their whole career. And I like the fact that this generation is providing some forcing function in that.
Yeah. And what, fascinatingly though, last night with one of our cohorts in the program, we were talking, and an employee, young professional, said if you'd asked them, they just had the news that the company's office was going to get shut down and they weren't going to have it. And she said 6 months ago, if she'd been told that, she would have been ecstatic because the working from home was phenomenal and just like can go anywhere. And somehow in the last 6 months, she sees the real drawbacks of that. Like, so it'll be interesting to see if there's a pendulum for the next 6 to 12 months where companies that don't have any kind of like that aren't flexible are really punished. But that as you know, a group of workers, we eventually come to realize, wow, I do want some more FaceTime with people regularly. I do need that. And this idea that just working remotely is the holy grail all the time, that young people may swing back, and we'll find some place in the middle.
And I think, Mike, that you brought it up earlier. It's not an either or. I think it's going to be an and. It's got to be a hybrid, because we are even finding some young professionals that are missing out. We just spoke with a company the other day, and they said, interestingly, they were considered an essential business during COVID. And, so they immediately went to remote. It wasn't a big deal because they were kind of techie, but they left the option open for anyone that wanted to go into the office. And what the owner said, and he's a fairly younger guy, but he said it was interesting because what he was finding from his analysis is those that were single were coming into the office, or those that had teenage kids because they just wanted to get away from their kids and, needed that break. So it was interesting just kind of to see, who was coming into the office, and who wasn't, even when they had the choice.
Yeah. And a big challenge there for businesses is how do you right size the amount of space you have, and how do you do that, right? Because that's an expensive, right? Are we going to keep a huge footprint for 80% of people that come in 1 or 2 days a week, right? That's a huge overhead. So yeah, I don't know how we'll sort that out, but it's not an easy, because it's not to say, well, we'll just rotate people. Everybody will come in 2 days a week and we'll just make sure we have enough space because then sometimes you do want everybody in for big events for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. So you have to have that capacity. So I think we have a lot to figure out.
Yeah, just one more. Actually, that company, what they decided to do is they make it mandatory that everyone comes in every Monday, so that they do, and all their meetings are on a Monday, so that they can have those water cooler discussions and collaborations in person. But then the rest of the week, they leave it up to them what they want to do.
Yeah. Any other comments? Suzanne, back to you. Do you want to just continue to do the next part without going to the breakout rooms?
Yeah.
Since we're already at 12:50.
So one of the pieces we talked about is critical thinking and a mindset shift. And one of the pieces that we ask our coachees is looking at other people's perspectives, especially their manager. Again, why is their manager doing this? And if their manager is always saying no, 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 maybe understanding that's a personality style and a difference from maybe they're optimistic, let's try all the ideas at once style. So what we'd like you to do is maybe try that piece on for yourself. And as a result of this training, maybe you're thinking, that would be a good idea, but do we always actualize and activate on our ideas? Not all the time. So we thought a little coaching exercise would be fun. After you've heard some information today, maybe you're having some hesitations or you're thinking, I don't know if I should explore that idea. So we want to run you through a set of these 3 questions where you can coach each other. And if it's not an idea about emerging professionals, maybe it could be some other HR policy or training you want to develop. So we're going to ask you, and if I could maybe do this quickly with Sandra. So Sandra, is there something you've been thinking of instituting for your employees or a new training you want to develop?
So I'd like to, come up with a training for, I think, so for handling difficult coworkers, for handling your peers.
Excellent. And what's the why behind this idea?
The conflicts, the conversations, the sidebar conversations, the gossip is just creating havoc through the organization.
So it sounds like this idea would have pretty big impact for an organization.
For the turnover, definitely. Yes. Yeah. Because we're not able to retain the good people because the complainers are overrunning the departments. And we don't fire anyone because we need people.
Yes, that's today's landscape. So as you're thinking about this, what's the cost of not exploring this new class or idea?
Yeah, I think we'll end up losing really top talent that's going to go to another environment that has better communication.
And what could you gain?
Just a better, more productive, well-run, machine that has a culture of openness and a good dialogue and healthy. Conflict can be healthy too. So have a healthy conflict and healthy dialogue to come up to the agreements and not have so much backstabbing.
Great. So was this dialogue helpful for you in clarifying maybe a willingness to take some action steps?
Yes, absolutely. Because I'll lose my top talent if I don't do something about this problem.
Great. And of course, it may take a while. We all go through our own change process, right? Sandra's like, let's turn on a dime, but you may have to have this conversation again. So if we could just take 5 minutes, Mike, maybe put people in the groups. Is everybody clear about what we want you to ask? What's the purpose? What's the cost of not exploring it? And what could you gain by doing it?
Yeah, let me set that up.
And again, you don't have to limit this, but Sandra gave a great experience. You could use anything in your professional environment that you feel safe and comfortable sharing. And I might even ask Sandra, if I was coaching her professionally, when she'd like to start to make some action steps to get going on this training, or who could she enroll in helping her with it.
Hey, Suzanne, why don't we, since we're already at 12:52, why don't we just do them live with you so that we don't have to go out to the breakout room and then come back and try to summarize and risk running people past the 1 o'clock.
Okay. If you could go back to the questions, actually, Mike.
Sure.
Would any brave extrovert, so I like to give you the opportunity to choose, right? So if anybody would like to go through these questions on their own, that's fine. If anybody would like to do this out loud, that would be great too. So maybe we'll just get a sense. You can ask yourselves these questions, or we could ask you out loud.
Suzanne, you going to cold call?
No extroverts in the group.
Well, John, how about you, since you just spoke up?
I was afraid you were going to say that.
I was hoping you'd do that, John. You fell for my oldest trick.
Oh, boy. Yeah, but you're going to have to call on someone else. I mean, we'll have to reframe this because leading indicator systems, we have a great team, no backstabbing that I'm aware of. And unfortunately, actually, we have the reverse problem. We're all old professionals. We've been working together for 20 years as a group. Our biggest challenge would be thinking about how we onboard a young professional. And that's an issue we're starting to wrestle with because we're growing and we need talent. That's our challenge.
Well, we're really trying to demonstrate this piece that we use in our programming. So think about something else. Think about an idea that you all have been kicking around that you haven't activated yet. Or you'd like to do it. Sandra kind of made hers up. For the
Well, I don't want to make it up, but I mean, quite literally, I think we don't know how to go about hiring a young professional. So, and more so because we've all worked together for so long and know each other so well. And we went remote before the pandemic. People wanted to work from home and they could. So we went remote a long time ago. So how do you bring new people into the mix when you've all been, all been working together? You know each other's thoughts. There's no office, so there's no water cooler. That's the challenge we're facing. So we don't have a good idea how to deal with that.
So one thing we did for new folks coming in was we started a mentor program. Do you have a mentor program, and would you consider that or run that through this scenario idea?
Yeah, I think we would. I mean, the irony is we don't have a mentor program because, of course, we all have been mentoring each other for so long, and all. But maybe that's the answer. Maybe that we bring someone on with a specific, real big hug, right? Everybody. Because we're probably only going to bring on one or two in a first phase, and we could easily, everybody could have, 2 mentors in that, or 3 mentors in that arithmetic.
Yeah, and we find that we were doing some work around this, and that the idea of having both mentors from a technical job skill point of view, as well as a mentor from a business kind of wisdom point of view that doesn't have to be the sort of same position or skill set that you're bringing on is really a helpful balance there.
Yeah, kind of a mentor in the technical arena and one in the social organizational.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would also say, oh, sorry, was somebody else?
Nope. Yep.
I would also suggest that you make it clear that you're really interested in their ideas and what they have to contribute from their perspective, from that generation, because you are marketing to that generation. And then walking your talk and incorporating some of those ideas. So again, because you've been together so long, they may see you all as more entrenched in that. That's their experience of some company. So again, using their bright ideas, giving them opportunities, continuing to upskill them and giving them opportunities to grow is, I would think, in your company, given what you do, you want some bright minds, use those ideas and adjust the ideas they're giving you to their populations, because they are experts at their own group.
Yeah.
And I love what Michelle just said, and Lynn echoed that, people, it is about that. We know Gallup points that out as well. Having a friend in the business it can go a long way to dealing with that manager that you can't stand. And if you don't have a friend and you don't like your manager, goodbye. So,
yeah. It's interesting you're thinking about these things, because it all of a sudden says, well, maybe we ought to hire 2 people at once instead of, kind of our thought was one person every 3 months and integrate them and bring on the next person. But if we brought on 2 people at the same time, it would be more efficient, but it would also give them kind of a shared experience. Maybe not, they might not end up being best friends, but at least they could, share that experience.
Yeah, I mean, we know that from a diversity point of view, no one wants to be the only person of any kind of a group in a department. It's very hard. And I mean, the youngest by 2 or 3 decades is no exception to a big challenge. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. So
Yeah.
thanks, John. Thanks for being brave. I'm mindful of people's time,
Thank
and it's
you.
12:59.
I've got to think about this.
Yes, exactly. So we'll wrap. So I'll hand it back to you, Sandy, to wrap from here. And
Yeah, so we just really wanted to say thank you so much. We know we ran a little bit over, but the discussion was robust. So that's really what's the most important thing, is that we have a great discussion around what's happening. And it's so messy, but so we really appreciate everyone's feedback. So the things for you to be thinking about, well, what is your aha moment? You know, what is it that you are thinking about that you may not have thought about before you came into this session? What are the actions that you're going to take, and how will you take on these actions, and how will you help your clients if you're in our space? You know, how are you going to help your clients with this particular issue? And, you know, we're talking about attracting talent, retaining talent. You know, it's culture. You know, it really is all about that right now. You can, you know, people can come in with the skills, but if they don't feel like they're loved and get that little warm and fuzzy, it's going to be challenging. So, you know, teaching them how to do that, and both at the manager level and the employee level, managing up, managing down, and all those good things. So we'd love you to contact us, either myself, Suzanne, Mike. Our contact information is here. We're happy to help in any way we possibly can, and answer any questions, and partner up with anyone. And yeah, so we're very excited and grateful that you all joined us today. Thank you.